I.Pavlenko, From Family to Family. Chapter 2, Part 9.2, On the Way Home. My service as an ordinary telephone operator went well. Sometimes my heel hurt, but I hardened it and didn't pay attention to the pain. I spent my free time on the sports field and did good exercises on the horizontal bar and on the bars. The commander of the battery, Captain Pudov, even wanted to include me in the gymnastics team for divisional sports competitions. But I was not ready for them yet, so I refused with arguments. When he learned that I spoke a little German, he took me with him when he went with other officers for a beer or a shopping trip. So I gradually became his trusted regular. Once the soldiers of our battery were awarded medals for victory over Germany in a solemn atmosphere. Everyone got it except me. It was insulting. Then I turned to Captain Pudov, told him how I had fought and been wounded, how I had been in the hospital and taken prisoner. He listened in silence and then said, I believe and sympathize with you, but I can't help it. Your last name was deleted from the list in a special department. You can write a report in my name. I'll give it a go and it'll move to the division commander. But that's unlikely to change anything. I'd better send you, according to the doctor, to the Divisional Medical Commission. With this wound, they will probably remove you from the military register and you will go home. No wonder they say that the world is not without good people. On my way, I often met them and in difficult conditions. I thanked my commander, and a couple of weeks later, the Divisional Medical Commission gave me a third disability group and declared me unfit for military service. I received a document stating where and when I was wounded. On its basis, after Stalin's death, I received all the commemorative medals, as well as the Medal of Merit and the Order of the Patriotic War, in honor of the 50th anniversary of the victory. Thus, in the first stage of repatriation, the Stalinist Berian punitive hand almost did not touch those who had clearly expressed injuries, confirmed, at least to some extent, by documents from the last place of service or treatment, unless it deprived them of awards for shed blood. A whole echelon of demobilized people were recruited. Among them were many senior soldiers and surgeons, as well as teachers, specialists in the national economy. We were accompanied solemnly. A brass band played, farewell speeches were given. Everyone was presented with a gift, a cloth for a suit. They gave it to me too, apparently without the knowledge and sanction of the special department. We returned to our homeland loudly and pompously. The whole echelon was covered with slogans. The soldiers took home suitcases full of bourgeois rags. In the carriages, they lost to each other playing cards and also exchanged rags at stops, especially in Poland, for stinking moonshine and drank it. Some, being overdrunk, got under carriage buffers and under wheels. I felt a little uncomfortable in that noise because I had neither money nor extra rags. In my buffel bag were only the essentials: a gift cloth for a suit, a black faux leather jacket, green English pants, a white striped shirt, and a new civilian shoes. I myself was dressed in the usual soldier's uniform: peacoat, tunic, breeches, boots, and hat. I will say the following. In the press and in fiction, as well as in the cinema, our demobilized soldiers were portrayed as a rule somehow in a slick manner, as highly ideological and morally ideal winners, and their words and deeds were noble and instructive for the whole world. At the same time, the Germans were portrayed as corrupt villains who drank and immediately vomited. They did not sing but shouted. In public, they pissed off, took off their pants, and so on. And I will say, that veterans, both ours and theirs, were the same in everyday life. The war made them angry and cruel. I saw them fight to blood in the carriage when playing cards, and they got drunk and vomited. And the language consisted of only foul words, and as the soldiers understood each other. No war has ennobled any soldier, as Alessandro Chark describes in his novel, The Banner Man. War can only maim a soldier, both physically and spiritually. And one day we passed Germany and Poland. The first long stop on Belarusian soil was in Baranovichi. It was sad and painful to look at the fires and ruins of houses, the station, the grieving faces of people who smiled at us through tears. Men in patchwork pants and jackets, women in old faded jackets and skirts, thin and breastless like dried boards, children in prematurity from parents or older sisters and brothers, smeared and frightened. As you know, Belarus suffered the most from the occupiers and the fighting. Woe, great sorrow befell the land, which lost every sixth inhabitant. In Baranovichi, we were given food reinforcements, bread, American stew, and tobacco. We also visited the station bazaar. Prices for everything were around, hundreds and thousands. Loaf of bread, 80, 100 rubles. Chicken, 400. A bottle of moonshine, 120 rubles. At every step, the blind, legless, and armless asked for alms. What I saw was terrifying at heart. In Baranovichi, some veterans changed for other trains. I drove continuously all the way to Bakhmach, and already at that hub station, we, of up to 100 people, left the echelon. Among them, I recognized my fellow villager Ivan Kumpan Zvonkovy and the former director of the Yashnitsa, a 7-year-old school, Rimar, who was going to his family in Lochvitsa. There we got the last dry ration, bread and herring. Ivan sent a telegram to his brother Vasil Kumpan, who worked as a driver in a motorcade. And when we arrived at Iskivtsi station in the morning, a car was already waiting for us. Ivan climbed into his brother's cabin, and Rimar and I sat in the back. At about 8 o'clock in the morning on November the 19th, 1945, we arrived at our native village. The car stopped near Ivan's yard in Mikhailivkone. His wife, Paraska, jumped out of the house, crying, inviting us to the house. But I thanked them and rushed home. It was freezing up to 8 degrees outside, fresh and quiet. No soul was visible, but the village was alive because the smoke rose from the chimneys. I walked down the street. The frozen ground echoed under the soldiers' boots. And at heart, it was joyful and embarrassing. Yards and houses seemed familiar and no longer as they were. Once, good fences were neglected or completely collapsed. Without owners, the village was old, worn out, and looked gloomily at the world of God. I crossed the lake, approaching my yard, and there the old woman, Zagorulchicha Sekleta, looked out of the trees and shouted, "Oh, Nastya, oh, your Vanko is coming." Before the war, my family and neighbors called me Vanko. Mother rang out on the porch, smiling and crying. She was followed by my sister Maria, who also recently returned from Germany, and my brother Victor, a 17-year-old boy. Little 4-year-old Oля, whom I saw for the first time, huddled next to them. We immediately sat down at the table. Pantelimon Yarovy, our neighbor, entered. He reported from the door that he was a guardsman and took Berlin. Behind him His wife, Домаха, brought something. Paraskaza Gorulkova and Palashka Babaichina entered. Each put their own bottle and snack. And as Yesenin wrote, a sad conversation with warm tears on dusty flowers began.